We're going to talk about Jordan Peterson. He's talking about lazy young people. Now, Clark, I know that you fit the narrative. I know that you are one of these people. And so we are going to give you a solution. We're not going to chastise you. We're going to give you a solution for how you can fix getting out of your mother's basement, not being subjected to what it is that you see happening in society, and that you can wake the fuck up. All right? Okay? Jordan Peterson talks about lazy young people and how we solution for them before we get into the conversation about net worth. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Also, make sure you get that Teach Henley, 30% off your first order plus a free gift. We love you. We appreciate you. I'm going to get you out of your mama's motherfucking basement. Let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen.
You're going to love this. I recently sat down with world-renowned psychologist and author Dr. Jordan Peterson. We talked about a number of things, including education versus indoctrination and his mission to fight the far-left woke agenda in schools, maybe your school, as well as why Gen Zs can't cut it in the workforce. Not all of you, but some of you, and how we can help them. You got a new study showing new 20...
Generation Z's soft skills struggle. Make change at a register, working with others, making eye contact. I see y'all all the time. It's funny because when I walk around and I see you motherfuckers that be in the chat, but y'all be living in your mama's basement, but you see me in real life and then you neglect to even say anything to me because you scared that you gonna be shaking like this when you see me, right? You motherfuckers make no eye contact. How come y'all don't know how to talk to somebody and make eye contact? Why y'all always talking like this? And then you get on the internet and be talking shit. Don't take initiative, can't stay off your phone, dealing with frustration. Most of it is sexual. Jordan Peterson has a solution for you.
2023 hires are unprepared for work. They're unprepared for life. Dr. Peterson's take on all of this, especially for parents, is fascinating. Watch. When this study popped up, we thought, you got to weigh in on this. They say that Gen Zers come in, they're sincere, but if they have no necessary instinct on what to do next, find them a lot sitting idly by waiting for instructions on what to do next. Does that make sense to you? Something about this generation that would have trouble being self-motivated?
Well, I think that if you set up an education system that's designed to do nothing but demoralize young people and to convince them that their ambition is dangerous and, well, even world-threatening for that matter, a manifestation of patriarchal oppression on the social front, and then a danger to the survival of the planet on the natural front, then, and you don't do anything to foster that ambition and to channel it into a manner that might be productive and to tell young people why their ambition might be useful, then you're going to get exactly that. So you hit what you aim at if you try hard enough, and the education system has been trying to demoralize people for 60 years.
And part of it is based off of the fact that we now have leaders that wear dresses. It's feminine. They wear dresses on both fronts. It's biological women that's wearing dresses. And then the other leaders are people like Clark in the chat that wear dresses and they men. 47 years old was the ones that taught us happy wife, happy life. And are demoralizing our children because they're giving them no real substance as to how it is that they need to become real men and feminine women within our society. Let's continue.
One of the things that really stuns me, I haven't been able to figure this out yet. I've been trying to talk to Republican governors about this. I cannot understand why conservatives have been daft enough to allow the faculties of education to retain their hammerlock on teacher certification for the last 60 years. It's insane.
You mean the criteria to get the certification and what's in it?
You have to be trained in a faculty of education to become a teacher. Why? They're the most woke element of the entire rotten university carcass. And they have the hammerlock on 50% of the state budgets. The conservatives are always complaining about the culture war. It's like, well, you handed all the young people to the faculties of education, right? Their research is terrible. It's low rate. Their students are generally very incompetent, comparatively speaking, on the academic front. It's foolish, and this is the outcome. It's not surprising.
And it's a way to work on the foundation. And when you have an RNC chair or a DNC chair, if you have an agenda, that's what to work on. Don't get Mr. and Mrs. Candidate elected. Start focusing on the direction you want the country in, and find out how to give people an education that will allow them to at the very least think, but not what to think.
Well, the left-wingers in the 1960s were far-seeing enough, the more radical types, to envision a decades-long march through the institutions, right? And one of their goals was the capture of educational institutions, and that's happened completely, and that's been...
And if you want to solve for a problem based off of what you think makes sense for the country, or you want to steer something in the direction that you want to go in, usually what you start with is the children. And the easiest way to be able to infiltrate how it is that you want society to go is to start with the ones that's easily moldable, the ones that's easily impressionable. You start to market yourself and you start to change the narrative. See, Jordan Peterson is absolutely right, which I don't think that I've ever seen Jordan Peterson have a wrong take, right? And if you have not read his book, 12 Rules for Life, then you need to do so. I have it. I've read it twice. Some of you may have to read it 3 times in order for you to really understand it, even if you only read the first chapter about the crab, right? What I've learned personally is that if I want to affect a group of people, then I have to affect the youngest versions of them, not the ones that's already set in their ways. When you're having a conversation with people, a lot of times, you're not even speaking to the majority, you're speaking to the minority. You're speaking to that 1 or 2 people that may need to hear your voice so that they can make that change, because they're already looking for, or they've been praying for, somebody to give them some insight on how it is that they can change their life, right? And so what he's basically explaining is that the stronghold that the country had as far as being able to shape what our future is going to be came through our schools and through our children. So when we see these conversations happen at large, for example, let's just take the alphabet community. Let's take talking about marriage, right? Who can marry who should use what pronoun, what bathroom you can use, who can play in what sport, what it is that we think masculinity is. It's okay for men to cry, not get the fuck up, and actually be able to participate and do what it is that we do. Women can do whatever they want. They can determine the course of the country. They vote in who our leaders are. They are the head of households now. When we start to have these conversations, and then people say, well, what do you care? Because it doesn't affect you. You have free choice. Well, if I want to infiltrate into your household in the same way that I can get you set up with a woman, all I got to do is infiltrate what it is that your kid is studying every day while you at work, and then they in school for the next 8 hours, and they have to be indoctrinated by the people that they influenced by from the friend group that they have, right? And so this has been a decades-long march towards trash that we now see the people that are the leaders of the country, running the country, determining the laws, being easily influenced, don't stand for nothing, and they have no moral compass by which they can lean back on because their foundation is corrupt. The children have been molded, and now they're the adults. They're the Generation Zs. They're the millennials. There are these people that are now determining the course of the country. And so right is wrong, wrong is right, which is why I say that the culture is trash, because it's the things that we celebrate the most.
I mean, absolutely abetted by conservatives who tend to get lost in the details. And well, then you think now you have young people who are demoralized and directionless. Well, they're never taught anything about how to acquire a direction. You know, we did a study. I used this program I developed called Future Authoring. We did a study where we had 3 studies, actually, where we had university students sit down essentially for 90 minutes. Right. 90 minutes, this was it. And write out a goal, a series of goals for their life, right? Who could they be in 5 years across 7 important dimensions of their life? And where might they be that would be terrible if they didn't get their act together? We dropped their dropout rate 50% and raised their grade point average by 35%. 3 separate studies.
Wow.
So that's all you have to do if you want to motivate young people, is to teach them a bit of visionary discipline and encourage.
Now, why would we want to do that instead of continuing to push the agenda so that we can benefit off of whatever it is that we think is right or wrong? Listen, nobody actually wants to. I'm not going to say nobody. The overwhelming majority of people are not trying to actually help anybody. They're only trying to push an agenda because it makes them feel good. They don't even get anything out of it. When you see most of these people that's out here protesting every day, those are the worst kind of people. because they're not even financially incentivized or motivated to do so. They doing it because they actually believe that they're right. There's people that actually believe that it makes sense for a man to not go to work every day. There's people in the chat right now that will say that it's okay for a man to not have to work at least 40 hours. And y'all ain't even got to do nothing today. It ain't even like you got to go out there and do you got to build up the steel beams and you got to do construction. You got to lay concrete and you ain't even got to do, dog. You won't even get up to go to the meeting that you got to go to at 9 o'clock or fucking get to the Zoom call and you working from home in a call center. I hear a call on a fucking call and I hear all kind of junk happening in the background. I hear Smash Brothers in the background during the pandemic and all of that. So when we start to see this and we start to see how things play out, this has been in the works for a long time. If you want to talk about systematic, then let's not talk about what it is that we see happening in the black community. Let's start talking about what it is that we see happening culturally, because it's bigger than what it is that you see from a race perspective.
And we do the opposite of that. Plus, we terrify them. Trigger warnings. We tell them that everything's dangerous.
You talked about accommodation. So someone has ADD, they're told, dyslexia or other things.
Yeah.
In the public school now, there's a lot of accommodations. I'm going to give you more time for your test.
Yeah.
Or things to that nature. I have trouble tracking across the line. Do you think accommodations in many cases don't show progress? Can be limiting? Why?
Well, the problem with the accommodation hypothesis is something like, the advantage is, well, you want to do what you can to help people who might have obstacles that could be overcome to learn. That's not unreasonable. But the problem with the accommodation hypothesis is, well, what happens when you have an actual problem to solve? You're not going to be accommodated. You're not going to be accommodated in a workforce that requires genuine competition.
So nobody cares. We're not here to coddle you. When you get out into the real world, it's not about whether or not they can accommodate you. So what you're basically teaching the kids is be handicapped, even if they don't even have a disability when they get into the real world. I'll give you an example. Nobody cares if you lose your home. It is going to be an opportunity for somebody else to be able to capitalize off of your loss because you weren't taught how to be able to recover, how to be able to endure, how to be able to leverage, and how really to be able to really, have the right habits in order to ensure that you don't lose your home. So then you become the head of household, but nobody can actually substantiate who's the leader because you're feminine and you're looking for an accommodation, you're looking for a handout, you're not looking to be able to thrive and survive, and you don't even have the ability to do so because you weren't given the tools and you were raised by a woman.
Because if you're accommodated in a workforce that requires genuine competition, you're just going to be taken out. There's no time for that.
Right.
You might say, well, there should always be time. It's like, well, not if there are important things at stake.
Yeah.
Well, that's foolish, right? Because when you're making important decisions, you're always balancing one catastrophe against another. You don't have the option that everything's going to turn out. And so the problem with accommodation, well, first of all, it's going to be gamed, and it's being gamed like mad.
Yep.
And second, it gives the person who's being accommodated to the wrong picture of the world to which they're going to adapt. You think about this with parenthood. How should you treat your kids? Well, as a mother and father, you should be a proxy for the world. Maybe a slightly more merciful proxy. But basically, the message you send your kids about their behavior is the same message that the world is going to send them. It should be. Because otherwise you're not preparing them for the world.
Which is one of the reasons why I tell people that our job is not to be our kid's friend. Our job is to be their parent, right? I want my child to fail in a controlled environment. That way, when they actually get out there in the real world, they know how to handle it. They're prepared for it. They've been conditioned for it because it's a war out there. Let me say it again. I want my child to fail in a controlled environment. That way they don't have to experience the level of failure that they'll have to go through after they get from under my covering. One of the things that I talk to people about all the time, shout out to all of the new Patreon members. Let me get a round of applause for all of the new bag chasers and Patreon members. I've been getting a notification. I get the notifications all day, every day of the people that join the Patreon. Shout out to the bag chasers. I talk to guys all the time, right? And one of the things that I tell them And a lot of people really don't like this part of what it is that I tell them. But I tell them anyway because my job is not to make you comfortable, it's to tell you the truth. I tell guys all the time, do not buy your son a car um, as a graduation gift. Don't give him a car to be able to get back and forth to work. Do not buy your child a car. Now, I know it's going to be a lot of softies, right? It's going to be a lot of people that say, oh my God, but I didn't have a car when I was growing up and I don't want them to go through what it is that I went through. Well, that's part of the reason why you self-reliant, you're not dependent on the federal government, why you go to work every day, why you take care of business, why you're in a position of power is because you've had those lessons that allowed for you to be able to understand what suffering in order to get to the result look like. And so I tell people all the time, listen, first of all, you raise your daughter much different than you raise your son. Secondly, you do not buy your child or give them a bunch of stuff in order to do the thing that they're supposed to do anyway. Oh, you got good grades here, and let me reward you as a result of it. No, that's your reasonable service. That's like me taking care of my kid. I don't get no accolade for that. It's my fucking kid. I'm supposed to take care of my kid. And so when we came up, my father, and he always told us, he said, listen, I'm not buying you a car, but I will help you get a job in order to be able to do so. I will enable you with the tools in order to go on, go get your resume together. I will point you in the right direction, but you are a fucking man now. And if you want to go and get a car, if you want to drive back and forth, if you need something in order to get you to and from, then you're going to have to earn that shit. He said, I gave you everything that you need in order to be able to survive, everything that you need in order to thrive. And when we got that car, it meant that much more to us because we had to work for it and we had to put our blood, sweat, and tears in it. And it wasn't just a car. It wasn't something that I was going to crash out. And then I had to pay for my own insurance. I had to get my own car. When something happened to it, I went and changed my own oil, changed my own. Man, I took that whole fucking 1986 Buick Regal apart and put that bitch right back together. My first car, 1986 Buick Regal. I was taking that car apart and putting everything back together. I loved that car. I washed that car every single day because it meant something to me because I had to go and sweat and put my own blood, sweat, and tears into it in order to acquire it. They not gonna die. Oh, but his job is well, then fucking let him walk over to the fucking corner store or the McDonald's down the street in order for him to get. See, he not gonna make no money at 18. He ain't supposed to make no money. I see young guys that get coaching calls from me, Anton, I feel like I'm behind. I'm only 21, 22 years old. You supposed to be poor. You a college student. But the women don't like me being poor. Well, that means that you're vetting and getting rid of the people that's supposed to be in your circle anyway, so that you don't have any distractions and that you can then put yourself in a position to align yourself or be equally yoked with the woman that you're eventually supposed to be with. You're not supposed to be focusing on these hoes anyway. Focus on getting your bag. Make the sacrifice. Have a level of dick discipline. Fam, life is much better, exponentially better when you do the right thing early before you get into a situation where you have to be reactive and then be retroactively trying to solve for a problem that you should have been doing when you was younger anyway. Right? You're supposed to be poor. You're supposed to suffer. You're supposed to go through shit. You're supposed to be having issues and problems. You're supposed to be hitting your head. You're supposed to be making mistakes early. You're supposed to be in a position where you're failing in a controlled environment. Stop giving your fucking child every single thing that they ask for, especially if he's a man, because you basically handicapping him and he's not going to be able to survive without you.
So maybe your kid's annoying as hell to you and your wife, and you don't do anything about it because you think, well, we're all mercy. It's like, that's just fine until your kid has to make a friend or, deal with an adult that's not you.
Socially
they're
awkward.
going to get slaughtered. There's nothing merciful about that. And if you accommodate people beyond what the environment itself would allow, you misinform them about the world they're going to inhabit. And plus, it can be gamed, and it's being gamed constantly.
Online school, you and your daughter working together.
Yeah.
What should we know and how do we get it?
Well, we've got about 30 courses.
All right, that's enough. I'm going to read Super Chat shortly. But the point of this whole video and what he's trying to say is the world will have no mercy on your child, especially if he's a man. They will have no mercy, and you will not always be able to be there. You will not always be able to be there for them because eventually what you want to do is put them in a position where they can thrive and become better than you. And you can't do that by just throwing money at them and giving them everything. You have to teach them the lessons of what it takes in order to be a man. And see, I seen this dude named Clark in the chat, and he's so coddled and so weak. He's probably the head of diversity and inclusion at some organization that probably laid him off, so that's why he had to move back into his mother's basement. The point of the matter is this. Look, you cannot, and I know it hurts you and it pains you for them to have to actually work for something and for them to have to get off their ass and stop playing video games and for them to have to earn something. By the time that I was 19 years old, I had already bought 2 cars. I still had my 86 and then I went and bought a Mercury Sable. Yeah, see, it was a 2001 Mercury Sable I was cool. It was mine. It was mine. I was willing to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't get to where I am today because I was just chilling and I fucking got lucky. I don't know any rich people that got lucky. I know everybody that actually worked their ass off. And all of these people that's walking around coddled, feeling some type of way. Listen, man, you're going to have to get off your ass. You're going to have to stop celebrating everybody and start holding them accountable because everybody don't deserve a participation trophy.